Coming in at number 72 on the Sens Central NHL draft rankings, we've got our second Swedish centerman so far, Linus Eriksson from Djurgården. And I like what I'm seeing from Linus Eriksson.
Yeah, there's a lot to like, Ross. When you're looking at Swedish prospects, so now we're gonna get into this as we get deeper in our prospect profiles, Ross. You and I tend to be baffled sometimes with how prospects are developed over in Europe, but it's a whole different world over there, right? Because they got pro leagues, and the pro teams have to decide, is this guy actually going to help our team, or is he just a young gun with a lot of potential and we're not going to see him after this year? So do we play him a lot? Do we invest in him, or do we just have him around because we know he's going to be gone after? Well, Linus Eriksson, you got to give a lot of credit to him. 29 games in the Allsvenskan League is pretty impressive for a guy his age. He played four more games there than he did in the J20 National League. In the Allsvenskan League, he put up 3 goals, 8 assists in 11 games. And the first thing, I don't necessarily look at the points as the first indicator, Ross. I look at the ice time. And this guy ranged from 7 minutes, which ironically, that game, Ross, where he only played 7 minutes and 3 seconds, he scores 2 goals. It's his biggest goal performance of his entire time there. But then you look 3 games later, mind you, overtime game, this guy played 20 minutes of ice time. So, like, he's kind of all over the map here, but clearly is a guy that the coaching staff in Djurgården in the Allsvenskan League trusts. And that goes a long way for a centerman trying to make his way here.
Corey Pronman is so high on him, 24th overall on his rankings. I'll get to why in a minute. Bob McKenzie, very similar to Craig Button. Button's at 63. Bob is at 65. Elite prospects all the way down at 92. But the reason why he's playing those minutes and why he was the captain of Team Sweden at the World Under-18s is his versatility and leadership. He's a guy who can play in all 3 zones and all 3 offensive positions. I think he's a guy that a team who's looking for a Swiss Army knife is going to be happy to add. I don't want to do any sort of player comparable with Linus Eriksson. I'm not sure if he's ever going to be a 40-point guy at the NHL level, but he's a guy where you can plug and play. And if you have to move him for a certain number of games up into a top 6 role, I think he can play that complementary, just strong forecheck, back check, like do all the little things that coaches will find trust in. And I mean, it's obviously going to be a common theme among players that are captains. They're selfless. They want to lead by example. But I do think that a team is probably going to select him I think above where Bob and Craig have him, where they have 65. I think, like, I'll be surprised if his name's still on the board after 50.
Wow. Okay. That's funny, because I think I have a different approach. I was saying I think where Bob and Button have him is probably where he's going to end up here. But
there's gonna be in this draft such a wide range of lists among teams, and it just takes one to have him where Pronman is. It just takes one. And if you're looking at it, you're like, we had this guy in like the mid-20s. Why is he still there at 40? I think a team could be pretty happy if you have a deep enough prospect pool, or sorry, a thin prospect pool that you want to like add it. He's like the perfect depth guy, I think, where it's like he can play all 3 positions, and I think he has a low risk. The ceiling might be a little bit lower, but the floor is pretty high.
yeah, that's fair. I could see a team like Detroit liking this guy, right? Like, they have a heavy Swedish influence. They like those two-way players, like a Marco Casper type. I know he's Austrian, but I'm speaking more like the two-way guys. And Linus Eriksson, I think, is a nice two-way player. And yeah, his defensive play is what allows him to have that respect from his coaches. And he's not just a defensive player, though. A couple of highlights that I was able to find of him, he has a really good long range shot, and he's confident enough to rip it from the top of the circle, which for a young guy playing in the Allsvenskan League, that shows that clearly he believes in his shot. Otherwise, his teammates would be like, dude, what are you doing ripping that puck from that far? Pass it or do something else with it. But he's able to score from there, so you got to love that. But most scouts point to the fact that he's a very good passer. He's able to find his teammates in sweet spots, hit them on the tape with the puck, and able to create offense that way. I project him as a third line defensive player that can chip in offensively if he has a sniper on his line, right? Like, I think this is the kind of guy that teams are going to look at and they're like, all right, if we can get a third line, and this is how I like to construct my lines typically, you want a defensively responsible player, you want a sniper, and you want a playmaker. Well, you might have a defensively responsible player and a sniper all in one, or a playmaker, sorry, all in one guy here. So if you can hook them up with the right line mates, Erikson could have some success for sure.
He's a disher when you look at his goals versus assists ratio. Pilsy, how many stars for Linus Eriksson as a potential Sens draft pick?
So as I mentioned, I think I'm a little lower on him than you are. I only gave him 3 stars here. 3 stars typically is me saying, nice player. I don't see any overwhelming skills, and I don't think the Ottawa Senators will be in a position where it makes sense to draft him. So 3 stars for me.
I'll go with 3.5. I'll just put a little oomph on it, but I'm not banging the table that you have to have Linus Eriksson, especially if you're the Sens, where I think the Sens should be swinging more on upside because they have a lot of depth pieces that are similar to Linus Eriksson.